Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Amir. I'm the Senior Enterprise Sales Manager at ABBYY UK. That means I look after our Fortune 500 clients, Emerson being one of them. And I'm joined by Simon to go through some of the experience they've had with ABBYY Timeline, the process intelligence tools of ABBYY Solutions. Tell us a bit about your background, experience, role at Emerson, and also what does Emerson do?
So I'm Simon. I'm the Director of Business Transformation and Optimisation for Measurement Solutions, a business group within the Emerson Corporation. Emerson's a huge organisation which delivers and manufactures software and manufacturing equipment to better serve our customers and improve their productivity, safety and sustainability. My role in Measurement Solutions is to try and improve and optimise our processes. So my background of 15 years working in continuous improvement has really stemmed me well for how we can take deeper look into our processes, make suggestions and improvements and standardizations throughout them. So ultimately our customers get a better service and our staff have a better place to work.
Thanks for sharing that. Very impressive background. And I'm sure you've come across so many different technologies throughout your career. But how did you come across process mining and how did you actually discover ABBYY? And what were some of the top 3-4 criteria that you decided to partner with us?
Yeah, we did quite a bit of due diligence looking at different vendors. We needed to have a look what's available on the market, researching different reports that were done by Gartner and such. And we needed to have a out-of-the-box solution. You know, process mining was very, very new to us. We wanted to be able to have a partner that had the same kind of culture and ethos and was willing to work with us as we figured out what we needed to do. One of the things that was very important was that it's intuitive. It had the connections that we needed to our ERP system, that people could learn on the spot and use things like ABBYY University to do some self-learning and be coached and guided along the journey. The support that we were getting as well, what we agreed on was around being able to coach us through that initial journey because it was a little bit scary for us as we ventured into this new world. So it was a great fit for our organisation.
Could you briefly describe the projects that you are currently using ABBYY Timeline on?
Sure, yeah. So we operate a quote-to-cash cycle in our organisation in Measurement Solutions. And we wanted to pick 2 processes that we could load in first off to see how things go, where we had lots of information. We had really great teams in Emerson where we could get sponsorship to get us through there and where we've got the data available too. So we wanted to make it as easy as we possibly could for ourselves. So the 2 processes we chose were our quoting process, where we quote the customer until the order's been placed with us, and then our order process once the order's been booked until we invoice it later on, so we can see that whole order entry cycle that we've got there. We picked those 2 processes specifically because they're a very common process for us. We have high volumes going through there and we wanted to understand deeply around where the variances might happen and where we can make some improvements.
Right, so you have prioritized and picked a process with the highest impact on the business as well as your customers. But did you have any specific targets that you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we need to focus on as a business is how we improve our customer journey. And that can be through making things more efficient, making things faster, making things more effective as well. So we wanted to focus on the data and realise what's the data telling us and having those data-driven improvements to form a portfolio of improvements what we can make across our processes. We don't want to jump straight into solution mode. We wanted that to give us the information and be able to give us the right level of information that we can do something with so we can realise the value later on. So some of the things that we do focus on is around productivity. You know, how many processes can a person possibly do in a day? What's the fastest route through our process? Having the right quality in there to remove the exceptions and the bottlenecks and the rework that we do, and also being effective and compliant. So process compliance is really, really important to us. We design what we think is the best route from A to B in our processes, and we often find, as we did do with process mining, that that isn't always followed. And there might be reasons for that, but we can track that compliance and make sure that the standard process is one that we adhere to.
You're absolutely right, and you touched on a very important point there, not jumping right into automation. That's in fact one of the key things that we looked at when we first started working together. We need to understand the process, understand where the issues, challenges are, improve it, and then maybe as part of the improvement, bring automation into it. Otherwise, it would create a bottleneck shift elsewhere in the process. Now, help me understand, previously when you were going about completing this task of discovering your processes, how did you actually complete that prior to ABBYY timeline?
In Emerson, one of our core values is around continuous improvement. We've got some great people who are using some Six Sigma tools and following a DMAIC approach to try and improve our processes. And it's not to say that those didn't work, but the evolution of continuous improvement that I've seen in the last 15 years has been around, using sticky notes on a wall when you're mapping a process, relying on that tribal knowledge of individuals to take the time out of their day to join process mapping sessions, to be actually able to use something like process mining where that kind of work's done for you. So your time to value is speeded up so much quicker, and you're using data-driven improvements as well. You're seeing things happen, you're actually seeing what's happening in your system for real, rather than looking at some reports which people are cobbling together. And it's really given us that kind of delivery of being able to realize the value a lot quicker than we used to be able to do.
Okay, so you mentioned that you've already kicked off 2 projects. What are some of the key results and findings so far?
Yeah, I mean, we're still learning. We're on a learning journey, and one of the great things is, as we're going through that and the aftercare and support that we're getting, to be able to unlock some of those modules that we never knew existed, or we're finding new things out. So we're making more and more use of the tool all the time. One of the things that we've been really finding interesting is the path analysis. Within the path analysis, we can see what is the standard path that we want to take for a process, where do we have variances or non-conformances, and what do those non-conformances or variances have an impact on us? Does it mean we are less productive? Does it mean it's costing us more money? Does it mean it's a cheaper way of doing it, or an easier way to get from A to B in our processes? So we're using those tools now to start to have those conversations around aligning and conforming to our processes and making us ultimately more productive. One of the tools that we've recently started using is the simulation. It's great for our intelligent automation developers, and to be able to come up with a hypothesis around, this is a great automation to do, it'll save us a bunch of time. But being able to put a simulation of how does that work if we actually did that change to the process, if we automated part of it, what's the net result? And we can simulate that before we spend the time, effort, energy, and cash putting an automation in place.
So Simon, you talked about some of the specific targets that you've had at the start of the projects, but also looked at some of the valuable insights that came out of the projects. But were there any unexpected outcomes and benefits after using Timeline?
Yeah, I mean, there's some surprise moments. When we looked at the data and we looked at the variances that we had in our process, we had to go back and check a few times and say, surely this isn't right. But what we come into the culture of is to trust the data. That's been a real cultural change for us, to be able to rely on data and having data-driven improvements in there. But having those moments when you want to check before you go back to the process owner to say, hey, this is what we found, we wanted to be absolutely sure about it. But the data didn't lie. The tool showed our areas where we needed to make improvements, and some of our projects which we'd previously scoped up, we might want to change some of those measures on there, but it gave us high potential for making those improvements in the future.
Can you tell us how you went about kicking off the first project, the support that you received from the ABBYY team, the implementation and the handover process?
I mean, we got some great guidance and working alongside the team at ABBYY around the deployment kind of timeline and what's typical and some of the critical success factors that we need. We've got a very capable team of great people in Emerson that we can try and get the troops around it and rally around a program of work. So we aimed at an 8-week kind of deployment timeline, but being very conscious of getting people on board and being agile enough in our organisation to realise that some people might need to dip in and dip out of the project where they're needed. So the first thing that we wanted to go around was engaging with the business and scoping their business needs. So the process owners, IT, everyone being on board to be able to say, this is what we need to deliver. Are we all in agreement of it so we can really frame what we want to deliver going forward? Then we moved into our design and build phase, and through design and build, this was about all the exciting technical things which ABBYY supported us on, around designing the timelines, designing the dashboards and everything else that we needed to put the data in the right position and give us the visualizations that we wanted. So we did a lot of testing through this phase as well, lots of engagement with the business to say, which colours do you want it, down to those kind of details, which we were able to get them to fit our organisation. And then implementing and handover then. So actually educating the business on how do you use the tool that we've got now? How do we make the most of it? And how often can you use it? And what insights can you start to drive from it?
How has the ABBYY team demonstrated expertise throughout the project, and how satisfied are you with the overall experience?
Yeah, I mean, going into these two projects that we've been looking at for process mining with ABBYY was our first kind of endeavour to do this kind of work before. So we had to go boldly, and we needed people with the right knowledge and the right expertise to support us along this journey. It's not always been easy, but it's been great that the team from ABBYY have known their product. They knew a lot about our data which we didn't know about as well, but always being at the end of a call to be able to support us and make changes. The team's been really supportive in using some of the knowledge that they've had with other customers as well. It felt we were in safe hands being able to know and leverage some of the experience which ABBYY have had and done with other organisations as part of their process mining as well. And being able to impart that knowledge and experience onto us to give us some guidance around telling us what we need to be looking for, guiding us into those next steps and giving us that push around being able to open up new ideas for us as we go into our data.
So the interest in process mining is growing, as we can see within Emerson. Different business units are starting to look into it very seriously. So what advice do you have for anyone looking to start their process mining journey?
Yeah, I think one of the main advices is something that we go by in Emerson is around going boldly, and we encourage that in our organisation. If you're thinking about doing it, give it a try. Get the right stakeholders on board, pick the right process, pick the right vendor. There's lots of vendors out there, but pick one that best suits your organisation and delivers what you need. So putting that scope together right at the beginning to say, this is what we want to achieve from having our process mining tool, and really trying to stick to that to make sure you're realising value along the way. The team that you have internally is super, super important. So when you pick that process, make sure the team, the management, the people who are in the organisation are fully on board, because there's going to be some work that they need to do. And it will be a leap of faith as we go into it, but the important thing is to have that leap, to start off and start going for it.
And how would you see our partnership evolving in the future?
I mean, this is just the beginning for us in Emerson. We at the moment creating a lot of awareness around the capabilities of process mining and starting to realise some of the value that we're getting out of it. The beginning of this journey is, it's an exciting one to be going on, where we're looking at our data in whole new different ways and finding different ways that we can use the tool in timeline to see things differently and to drive value through the organisation. So a lot of the engagement that we're doing now and the awareness around our company internally, with support from yourself around getting some of the other business units on board and telling them what process mining is all about, is actually opening a lot of new doors within the organisation where demand is coming our way for, wouldn't it be great if kind of conversations where we want to try process mining on different processes. So one that we're trying, is in flight now. We're currently working on, about, is in our North America, one of our North America factories, where we're trying to implement process mining there on some of the manufacturing processes, which is great insights for us. We've got plans to look at European approaches to pull in lots of different business units to see it there, from our procurement processes, finances. So I'm sure soon we'll have people trying to bang down the door to try and get some more of the use of the process mining tool.
And as a final question, Simon, can you summarise in few points your overall satisfaction with ABBYY Timeline and the whole team at ABBYY?
Yeah, I think if, like you say, split it into two things there, Amir, with the organisation, with ABBYY, with working with people like yourself and the great team that you've got there. It's been fantastic. The support, I don't think we could have asked for any more. I think we probably overused some of our chips in this game around the engagement and the support that we've had. But that's been really important to us to help us through this journey as we're starting off on this process mining experience. Being able to be at the end of a phone call, like we said earlier, it's not transactional, it feels more like a partnership where we're working together and we have shared goals. That's really important. We've spoken quite a few times about if we win, you win, and that's kind of like the relationship that I want to carry on and maintain. For the tool-wise, carrying on going into the future, like I mentioned earlier, there's some things that we've not even looked at yet. And I think being able to look at some of the other modules, being coached through it, and having a platform which is so easy to use that we can customize, we can learn new things about, and it's basically out of the box. We don't have to do too much of the thinking. We can give it a challenge, or we can get a business challenge and make the tool fit that challenge that we might have to be able to scope it out. So it's been a really, really good experience for us. Looking forward to working together in the future.